The beginning of the journey Britain in the 19th century. At the beginning of the 19th century, Britain was in a period of great transformation. The Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution had redefined social and economic structures. As Europe recovered from the Napoleonic Wars, the United Kingdom was positioning itself as the dominant power on the global stage, with vast colonial empires spread across every continent. In this period of great advancement, the spirit of exploration was at an all-time high, and the Arctic, with its icy and unknown lands, became one of the greatest challenges for explorers of the time. The search for a navigable passage between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific, the Northwest Passage, was at the center of the attention of the maritime powers, especially Great Britain, which, led by the British Royal Navy, aimed to fill the last gaps in its world maps. Sir John Franklin, the expedition commander, a veteran of the Royal Navy, Sir John Franklin had a long history of expeditions, but he also bore the marks of traumatic failures. He had already led 2 Arctic expeditions, both with disastrous results. His first expedition in 1819 was marked by extreme hardship and an early retreat. His second attempt in 1825 was also unsuccessful, but the pain of defeat did not deter him. When he was appointed to lead the Franklin expedition, the 59-year-old commander had a personal goal: to find the Northwest Passage and secure his place in history as the man who would solve one of the greatest mysteries of global geography. But unlike many of his contemporaries, Franklin was known for his kindness and his attention to the well-being of his men. His subordinates saw him as a compassionate and caring leader, and his personal character made him a charismatic figure, admired, although still with obvious flaws in his judgment. Planning the Franklin expedition in 1845, Sir John Barrow, Secretary of the Navy, took on the responsibility of organizing the last major expedition to explore the Northwest Passage. He knew that the mission had political and prestige implications for Britain, so he sought the best resources available. Barrow selected 2 ships, the Erebus and the Terror, which were among the most advanced for their time. The Erebus was a 105-foot-long ship, originally designed for war, but modified to withstand the Arctic. Her twin sister, the 102-foot Terror, had similar characteristics. Both ships were equipped with innovative systems for the time, such as steam thrusters, retractable propellers, and internal heating systems. In addition, they had the ability to convert seawater into fresh water, an impressive feat by the standards of the time. Along with the ships, Franklin had a crew of 134 men, including Royal Navy officers, scientists, and even a pet monkey named Jacko, given to Franklin by his wife Lady Franklin as a good luck gift. The voyage was well stocked with 16,000 cans of food, which was supposed to protect the crew from scurvy. This expedition was expected to be the great adventure that would go down in history. The departure, embarkation, and preparation on 19th May 1845, the ships Erebus and Terror set sail from Greenhithe, east of London, heading north. The voyage was full of anticipation, and the crew was excited to make history. The mission was clear: to discover the Northwest Passage, a sea route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans that could transform global trade. Before setting out into the unknown, the ships made several refueling stops in the Faroe Islands and Scotland, and in June 1845, the expedition reached Greenland. During the crossing, the crew had to adjust to their new surroundings, and the weather conditions became increasingly challenging. At the same time, British authorities at home were in a state of great optimism, believing that Franklin, the respected and well-prepared commander, could achieve the impossible. The route to the Arctic. As the crew approached the Arctic, they faced the first of many formidable challenges: impenetrable ice. During the month of July, the ships managed to cross the Atlantic Ocean until they reached Baffin Island. From there, they sailed to Lancaster Channel, a dangerous strait that represented one of the last obstacles before reaching the heart of the Northwest Passage. The weather was already beginning to change dramatically, and as the icy winds bit into their skin, the officers and crew knew they were about to enter uncharted territory. Even with the ships equipped with advanced technology, the reality of the Arctic environment quickly caught up with them. Thick ice made navigation difficult, and the ships began to feel the effects of a type of resistance no one had anticipated: psychological and physical isolation, exacerbated by loneliness and lack of sunlight. Entering the Arctic, immediate challenges. In August 1845, the ships entered Lancaster Sound and began venturing deeper into the Arctic, facing thick ice and treacherous waters. The terrain was completely desolate, devoid of life or vegetation except for a few rocks and white snow. The crew, who were initially full of energy and hope, were soon overcome by the immense challenge of surviving in this unforgiving environment. The journey was slow, and as time progressed, the first signs of serious difficulties began to emerge. The Erebus and Terror were becoming trapped in the ice, and even with the use of steam engines and retractable propellers, progress was extremely slow. This was not something Franklin had anticipated. The heat from the engines began to diminish, and the limitations of the ships became apparent, creating increasing tension between the officers and crew. It was a tense environment, where survival seemed uncertain at every step. The winter of 1845-1846's winter approached. Conditions became even more severe. Ice began to engulf the ships, and sub-zero temperatures became unbearable. The crew was forced to build makeshift shelters around the ships, using snow and canvas to create insulation. But life on board became increasingly difficult. During the winter months, the men began to suffer the effects of scurvy due to lack of vitamin C, and the death toll rose. Franklin, despite his planning flaws, still tried to keep morale high, offering prayers for the crew and taking steps to improve what he could. However, as the months passed and the ice showed no signs of receding, despair began to set in on the expedition. The discovery of lead poisoning. The real tragedy began to unfold when the crew realized that something was wrong with their food cans. Many of the cans were poorly sealed and over time began to leak. Lead poisoning and botulism began to spread, affecting several of the crew. The poisoning was accelerated by the salt water they were using for drinking, which was contaminated by poorly sealed lead pipes. As everyone's health declined, the deaths began to mount. The food that had been thought safe was slowly killing the men. More burials took place on Beechy Island as the survivors began to question what had gone wrong. The food failure and the ensuing poisoning would only be the beginning of an even greater horror. Frustrations and critical decisions. The decision to continue or abort the expedition became a dilemma. Franklin, despite his strong character and unwavering will, could not prevent the collapse of the expedition. His men were dying, and the lack of resources and options left them increasingly desperate. It was at this moment of crisis that the crew was forced to make difficult decisions, including the choice to split up in an attempt to escape imminent death. The disappearance of the Franklin expedition is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the history of polar exploration. As Franklin's men battled the relentless forces of nature, they were also in a battle against time, starvation, and eventually death. What remains of this tragedy are fragments of evidence and accounts, but what really happened remains a central question of Arctic exploration. The full story of this event continues to unfold, with new archaeological discoveries and studies continuing to shed light on the final moments of these lost heroes.